Hello, I'm Katinka Blackford-Newman, founder of the not-for-profit Antidepressant Risks. Welcome to our Spotlight series, where we feature interviews with some of the organisations and experts that are mentioned on our website. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Adele Framer from the Psychotropic Deprescribing Council. Lovely to see you, Adele.
Nice talking to you, Katinka.
So I always begin these interviews with asking about people's personal experience. What brought you to this space, Adele?
Well, I think that I'm pretty well known as Altostrada. That was my pseudonym when I was running survivingantidepressants.org for many years. And I came to establish that peer support site because I personally experienced protracted withdrawal syndrome from paroxetine. And that lasted for quite a few years. So my personal experience is that I myself have, I think, gone through the mill of every possible aspect of misinformation about going off of antidepressants. And I experienced a very large catalog of symptoms myself. And fortunately, I was able to recover. But it took a very long time. And my personal experience, I should say, also includes the work that I did on survivingantidepressants.org, where I offered peer counseling to hundreds, maybe thousands of people who were in similar situations. So I, over the years, I went off of paroxetine in 2004. And I would say that from 2005 to the current day, I've been researching this problem of psychotropic withdrawal syndromes. And I lay claim to inventing the field of withdrawalology. So that's my personal experience.
I'm just fascinated. How long were you on paroxetine?
I was on paroxetine about 3 years altogether.
Right, so not long. And then how did it, what was the impact coming off?
I got very poor advice from psychiatrists from an outpatient clinic from a very esteemed medical center near where I live. And I went off of paroxetine over probably a couple of weeks in October 2004. And shortly after that, I developed very unusual symptoms. In my case, I became hypermanic, which is a known consequence of going off of antidepressants too fast. But being in that state, I felt rather elated. So it took another, let's say, month and a half for me to really descend into a much more typical withdrawal syndrome. But I would say that that when I was in that stage of acute withdrawal, which is what happens when you immediately go off, I also had sleep disturbances. I was sweating, and I was very confused and disoriented as well. So it was clear that something had changed, and it took a while for me to recognize it. But I did start researching my symptoms quite shortly afterwards. And I went back to the clinic, and I said, I have withdrawal syndrome, and the literature says to reinstate paroxetine. And they said, no, no, no. They basically treated me as though I had developed a different type of psychiatric problem.
And as we know, that's very common, isn't it? And so then how long did it take you to become well?
I would say over the next few years, I very, very gradually improved. And I was working at the time. So despite the sleep disturbance and the electrical sensations and the confusion and disorientation, and many other symptoms that I won't go into here, I continued to work. and I did improve. Then I changed jobs, and I took a job that was more stressful, and then that sent me into a crash, and I got a lot worse. I struggled along for maybe 6 months. I wasn't able to sleep. I got to the point where I wasn't sleeping at all, and I had to stop work. And from then on, it took me about 7 more years to recover.
Gosh. So, Adele, most people would have just gone, I'm better now, I'm putting the past behind me. So, what motivated you to, first of all, start up surviving antidepressants?
When I was in the depths of withdrawal, I first of all, I tried to talk to every doctor I could find who knew anything about withdrawal. So I contacted many, many, many psychiatrists, and they all told me I relapsed, even though my symptoms were not at all like anything that I had ever felt before. And I didn't, I like many people, I was reluctant to join an internet community to talk about this, but eventually I didn't really have any choice. They were the only people who knew anything about it. So I joined an internet site called Paxilprogress.org, which at that time I think had been running for maybe 8 years or so, and it had about 25,000 members. So it was a pretty large site at that time. This was about in 2005. And there were a half a dozen similar sites for different drugs all over the interweb. There's a site for Zoloft and so forth and so on. There was Benzo Buddies for benzodiazepines, which is still in existence, but the other sites have all disappeared. Anyway, I belonged to Paxil Progress for about 5 or 6 years, and I continued doing my research, and I would share it with the people there, and we eventually evolved kind of an understanding of what was going on. Everybody was pretty confused, but I think, collaboratively decided what was happening. And many of us were experiencing protected withdrawal. But that site, as many internet communities do, eventually disintegrated. The leadership decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And the people that I was in connection with wanted to stay together. So that's why I started survivingantidepressants.org, because it came out of that community that people from Paxilprogress.org, most of whom had protected withdrawal, wanted to have another place to meet each other. So, by talking to people and just being in that community for so long, I came to this understanding. I became very convinced that helping people go off of their psychiatric drugs in an appropriate fashion was really the responsibility of doctors. And that is why I eventually went on to start the Psychotropic Deprescribing Council, because that had been in my mind for many years while I was providing peer support.
Tell me now about the Psychotropic Deprescribing Council. So it's fairly new, isn't it? Tell me about it, what it does.
Yeah, we started the Psychotropic Deprescribing Council at the very end of 2023. We're a nonprofit in the United States. That's a charity, and we're a registered charity. And we initially, our first year was our formative year, where we're trying to figure out what our program was and how we're going to accomplish our goals. And this year, we are aiming to publish what's called continuing medical education for clinicians. That is in the United States, and I believe also elsewhere, although continuing medical education is called different things in different countries. But every clinician is required to maintain their license by taking additional courses. And so these are courses for clinicians about how to deprescribe psychotropics. And we'll probably be using, since psychiatric drugs are the most commonly prescribed psychotropics, we'll probably be using those as our initial examples.
How are you going to sell this?
There are some doctors that are quite sympathetic to this idea and want to learn more about it. So we expect that our initial customers, I guess you could say, the initial people who want to use our CME, will be people who are curious about it and want to improve their skills. I think that we should, while doctors make many mistakes and they are unfortunately put in a bad situation right now because they get absolutely no advice about tapering in medical education, that in general, they all want to improve their skills. In general, they all want to provide the best care they can for patients. And since patients are asking for deprescribing, a lot of them are interested in deprescribing, although in their conversations with patients, they will try to dismiss the problem because they don't want to get into a long argument about it.
Are these courses, are they available now or are they available in the future?
What we would like to do is to raise funds for developing this material, and we are raising funds right now. So if you would like to contribute to help us develop medical education, please go to psychdeprescribing.org and give us a contribution. We would really appreciate it, and that would help us a lot. Otherwise, we're applying for grants and other funding wherever we can find it.
That's amazing. So I'm sure that many of our listeners will be really reassured to hear that you're doing this work, that you are giving legitimacy to their suffering, because so many people are prescribed these drugs, and when they come off them, they are met with disbelief by their very well-meaning doctors. So thank you so very much for the work that you're doing. Adele, final word, how can people find you, support you?
The website is really easy to remember. It's called psychdeprescribing.org. 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 So you'll be able to find it very easily. Just type in psych deprescribing. You'll get there. And there is a donate button up in the top right corner of the website. And we would very, very much appreciate donations so that we can continue this work.
Amazing. And you so deserve it. So thank you very much indeed, Adele.